Too close for comfort. Right now at 11, the mountain lion that just keeps showing up at one man's home.
I mean, I actually came outside like, where's the cat? You know, I was a little freaked out because I saw it on my camera.
Seems like the wild encounters are happening more often. Wildlife experts explain why.
Also, will it be your lucky day? 15 vaccinated Californians will win big this Friday. So who's eligible and how will you know if you've won? We have answers.
But first, the search is expanding tonight in hopes of tracking down a missing grandmother who hasn't been seen since Friday.
Good evening. We begin in San Francisco with that family that's so desperate to find their 84-year-old grandmother. Is she still even alive?
And where did she go? Why hasn't she been seen in 5 days after she left her home for her usual walk? Tonight, San Francisco police are widening their net to find her. NBC Bay Area's Elle is live in San Francisco, and that family is pleading for help, Jean.
Jessica, it is cold and foggy and wet here in San Francisco, and Grandma Funk's family says she doesn't speak English and she needs help. Tonight, missing person flyers with her face on them are appearing in neighborhoods in San Francisco.
I believe praying.
Tony Bosteman says he is praying for the woman on this missing person flyer. 84-year-old Jean Chang Can Fung hasn't been seen since she left her Richmond district home for a regular walk Friday afternoon. She never came home.
She will be lucky if she's alive in the cold weather.
Can help bring her back.
City officials are concerned about her well-being, too, holding a virtual press conference today, urging all San Franciscans to keep an eye out for Grandma Fung in her pink puffy jacket.
Officers from the San Francisco Police Department have been working tirelessly on this, but at this point, we are asking for assistance from all San Franciscans.
They say she was last seen at the Marina Safeway. That's where a CHP officer dropped her off.
CHP initially saw her near the MacArthur Tunnel. They approached her. CHP at the time, just as a courtesy, gave her a ride to the Marina Safeway.
Grandma Fung speaks Cantonese and Toisun. City leaders believe the language barrier prevented a safe return home.
I think there were missed opportunities for her to return home safely if it weren't for the lack of, frankly, language access and cultural competency.
Now, 5 days after she was last seen, investigators and family are desperate for her return. Jean Elle, NBC Bay Area News.
Well, new at 11 tonight, the North Bay town of Windsor has a new mayor. The town council voted 3-1 to select longtime council member and vice mayor Sam Salmon to fill the seat vacated by Dominic Fapoli. Fapoli resigned last month after a 9th woman came forward accusing him of sexual assault. Fapoli denies the allegations. In April, the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation into those allegations against Fapoli.
Tonight, a bizarre story involving the lead figure in San Francisco's corruption scandal. Former Public Works Director Mohammed Nuru arrested for attempted robbery over a bag of potato chips. Our investigative reporter, Jackson Vanderbecken, took this photo showing the sheriff's van carrying Nuru pulling into the garage at the Hall of Justice, where Nuru was taken late this afternoon to be booked. Police say the attempted robbery happened at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, where Nuru is a frequent volunteer. Officers say he pulled a knife on somebody there when the other person refused to give him a bag of chips.
It has been a week since the deadliest mass shooting in Bay Area history. Today, the Santa Clara County coroner completed autopsies on each of the 9 victims of the VTA rail yard shooting. And yes, we have learned the gunman shot all of them multiple times before turning the gun on himself. This weekend, many of the men killed will be laid to rest. We're also finding out more about the lives lost. That includes Abdi Alagmandan. The 63-year-old left Iran more than 2 decades ago in search of a better life here in the U.S. Tonight, we're hearing from his son's girlfriend, who thought of him as a father. She spoke to Abdi just days before he died.
He was driving home from work and he was really happy because it was his Friday and he had the next 2 days off, and we were talking about what he was going to do, and I told him I loved him.
Megan says the family is still in shock, trying to process why Abdi was targeted. She says he knew the shooter, but the two had never had any issues before. Abdi leaves behind a wife and 2 sons.
SJPD is being scrutinized this evening after an undercover officer shot and killed a man. Investigators released this, what you're looking at here, surveillance video of the suspect. His name is Demetrius Stanley. You can see him walking around there. This is the Berryessa neighborhood. This happened Monday night. He's carrying a gun. He then opens that car door. Inside of that car, that SUV there, was a plainclothes police officer who shot him at point-blank range. NBC Bay Area's Cull joins us from police headquarters in San Jose. And Ian, this family has a lot of questions about this case.
Yeah, Raj, certainly more questions than answers at this point. The SJPD says that they are releasing this video because it is of high public interest. It shows the seconds leading up to the shooting and then pauses and ends right before the shots are fired.
SJPD releasing this video from Monday night, showing 31-year-old Demetrius Stanley walking down the street and appearing to hold a gun after chasing away what turned out to be an undercover officer on foot. He passes an SUV with another undercover officer sitting inside it, walks back, opens the door, and that's when the second officer shoots and kills him. The video ends the moment before the shooting.
There was no plan to arrest or make contact with Stanley or to take any enforcement action whatsoever.
The chief says officers were doing undercover surveillance, so they weren't wearing body cameras. Stanley had a warrant out for armed robbery, and they wanted to confirm where he lived. But his family and activists are upset and questioning how Stanley would know the two men outside of his house were officers.
Another young black man. Never easy to lose someone.
I spoke with former San Jose independent police auditor and Judge Ladoris Cordell about this case.
Why was surveillance done in such a blatant fashion? Second, why is one of the officers who was doing the surveillance out of the vehicle and walking around Mr. Stanley's home? And this is again at night.
She says the police explanation leaves a lot of questions for investigators.
According to Chief Mata, that no body cameras are used when you're doing undercover surveillance. That policy needs to change because undercover surveillance knows that there is a possibility that things can go south and that there could be a shooting.
The officer who fired the shots has 14 years of service. The chief says that his name is not being released yet because he does undercover work and for his safety. We're live at San Jose Police Headquarters. Cull, NBC Bay Area News.
Meanwhile, Oakland's police chief apologized today for the actions of officers a year ago during the George Floyd protests. Department found 33 violations involving officers who deployed tear gas when they weren't supposed to. This happened June 1st of 2020. At that time, the chief said the department had information that protesters were preparing to throw Molotov cocktails at the officers. But the chief now says that information was not properly vetted and that officers were not facing an imminent threat. Some community activists are wondering why it took the department so long to get to this point.
One of the young men that was actually blinded temporarily by the use of these chemical weapons on Oakland citizens also said he appreciated the tone and the spirit and the good intention, the transparency of Chief Armstrong, but why was it so late?
The policy is very clear. Officers were not authorized to use gas in the manner in which they did, and for that, the department has held them accountable.
Discipline ranged from written reprimands to suspensions. Now, Chief Armstrong says his department didn't want to make changes in the wake of those demonstrations. He said immediately after, officers began going through hundreds of hours of updated training in crowd control and management. The chief also says officers who are authorized to deploy tear gas were retrained. Supervisors are no longer allowed to deploy tear gas, and supervisors have to approve the use of the tear gas in the field. And until a supervisor gives officers the okay, they are not allowed to remove it from their cars. And when tear gas is used, smaller teams will be deployed.
We have new details about the San Francisco cop attacked last Friday night. We've learned the DA is filing 2 felony charges against the suspect, Gerardo Contreras. Surveillance video captures the moment Contreras turns and attacks the Asian officer. She was attempting to detain him for reportedly threatening people in Chinatown.
Well, tomorrow we're expected to learn more about what the school year will look like in the fall. Bay Area health officials are holding a news conference. They back plans for schools to return to full in-person learning amid COVID-19 case drops and rising vaccination rates. Health officials say they've learned from research and classroom experience that the risk of transmission is very low among kids wearing masks.
Well, down, down, down. Nationwide, COVID cases continue to fall. This graph shows daily new cases since September. You can see the height of our winter surge right there, January 9th, 250,000 cases reported one day alone. By mid-April, we were down to 67,000 cases. Check out where we are now, 15,000 cases reported nationwide yesterday. That's the lowest since the pandemic started. Now, California's risk level continues to be among the lowest in the country. This is going to show you the risk of getting infected in each state. Relatively speaking here, there are 4 trouble spots. The states highlighted in orange: Washington, Wyoming, Colorado, and on the East Coast, we have West Virginia. The orange states mean they have a case rate of more than 10 per 100,000. Let's take a closer look at California and Florida. We've had some of the strictest COVID rules in the country. Our case rate right now, 2.4 per 100,000. Florida has had some of the loosest rules in the country. Florida's case rate right now, 8.6 per 100,000.
President Biden is intensifying his push to get more Americans vaccinated ahead of his own deadline.
Let's go into the summer freer and safer. Let's celebrate a truly historic Independence Day.
Today, the president declared a national month of action. The goal, getting 70% of American adults at least one dose by the 4th of July. Right now, about 63% have had at least one shot. And there's still time to qualify. California holding its first $50,000 vaccine lottery drawing, happening Friday night. All you have to do to be entered is actually live in California, be at least 12 years old, and have gotten at least one shot of the COVID vaccine. So on Friday night, 15 people will win $50,000 each. Another drawing is happening the next Friday, the 11th, and then on June 15th. 10 lucky people will each win $1.5 million. So how do you know if you win? State health leaders will call you, text or email you, depending on the information they have from the vaccine registry. If you don't respond within 96 hours of the drawing, you forfeit your prize, and another person will be chosen.
You got to respond. We're back in 60 seconds with new video of another encounter, a wild encounter. The mountain lion that's getting a little too familiar with one specific Bay Area neighborhood.
Plus, your night out in the city could soon cost you a bit more. The restaurant that just announced